Hi everyone, so I'm Cécile Serrier-Merel from the François Sommer Foundation in Paris, and very happy to be here and to start this country round of private land conservation tools. So in France we have multiple tools for PLC, but today I will focus on a relatively new one, the conservation easement. So indeed, in France, since the law for the reconquest of biodiversity, nature and landscape in 2016, we have created the Obligation réelle environnementale. And this tool is an adaptation of the Anglo-Saxon concept of conservation easement. And so it's relatively new, as the first contract has been signed in 2018. So concretely, it is an agreement by which an obligation to do or not do is attached to the real property and so attached to the land in case of transfer. The contract is signed between the landowner and the public or private legal entity acting for nature conservation. And it is a notarial deed, so it gives to the contract a strong legal protection for long-term conservation, up to 99 years. And one thing important, it is a very flexible tool, so you can concern every type of habitat, and it could be everywhere in France. And you can add all type of obligations, so you can concern the protection of a forest of 200 hectares, or just one hunting pond, or 2 kilometers of edges. So it's very flexible. Objective of the contract is always conserve or maintain or restore element of biodiversity or ecological function. And another important thing on this tool, it's a voluntary one. So it's a bottom-up approach, and obligation cannot be imposed to landowner. It really comes from them. So why landowners sign ORE in France? So like I said, it's a new one. So today we think that there are approximately 50 contracts signed, but it's hard to say because there is no national database. So we don't really know how many contracts have been signed. But for what we know, for the feedbacks, landowners are signing ORE because they wanted to protect their land on the long term and protect their action for nature on the long term, and that goes beyond their own life. And also because they are interested to have support and advice from nature conservation organization to manage their land. So there are the two main reasons. And now the question is how to extend the use of this ORE. And there are already some studies and feedbacks on this showing that financial incentives are not attractive enough. Because it's true that or the landowners are not even aware that there are financial incentives, or they are aware but they are so low that they are not asking for them. A second thing is the tool is still unknown, so there is really a need of animation and support from landowners. And for example, some landowners are afraid of the tool because they think they will not be free anymore on their land. And so it's really important to raise awareness on this tool and to say that it's really a voluntary one. So obligation are, the contract is really built with the landowners. Another thing, it's it's a new one. There is no case law. And sometimes, for example, with the agricultural world, there are some worries, for example, how to combine the ORE and other tools like the rural lease. So sometimes contracts are not signed because of that. So it's important to explain what is the tool to show that there is no issue to have both ORE and rural lease. And another thing to maybe make the ORE more attractive is to combine ORE and payment for ecosystem services. or carbon credits as a guarantee for sustainable and long-term conservation, nature conservation. So yeah, here are some thoughts about how to extend the use of these tools. And as conclusion, surprisingly, in the last few months, there are some increase of interest for the tool with multiple article in the media and also some research projects that have emerged. But still, there is a lot of work to do to raise awareness on the tools, and that will be the topic of a workshop we will organize in France, in Paris, in 1 month, the April 26th. And we will focus on how to extend the use in France, but also how to develop the conservation easement in Europe. So if you are interested and if you want to participate, you are, of course, welcome to join. We will have concrete feedbacks from the field, from the landowners and nature organization to explain us how and why they sign ORE. We'll have concrete feedbacks from successful countries with Canada and Australia. And also we will have a round table with high quality speakers on how to extend the use of conservation easement in Europe. So yeah, if you are interested, you can contact me and I can send you more information on the event. Thank you.
Maybe we can take one question from the audience for Cécile, if anyone has a question. Yeah.
Yes, it's online. Yeah, it's in Paris, but also available online. It's landowners and nature NGO. Most of the time, the contracts are signed with the Conservatory of Natural Area, but you have also Federal Departmental Federation of Hunters who are signed also ORE, or you can have Nature Department of Municipality who can sign a contract with landowners.
So now we have two colleagues from Belgium.
Yeah. Hello, welcome everyone. During this speech, Valerie and I, we will talk you through the nature management plans and easements in Flanders. Valerie, can you explain for me the different ambition levels?
I would, but does this work actually? Yes, it's okay. Yes, thank you. Well, Tom, there in Flanders, there are four levels rather, of ecological ambitions for nature management plans. Well, we've called them very easily 1, 2, 3, 4. The first level of ambition is actually kind of a basic preservation of existing nature quality. And if you go further into the levels of ambition, you see that the ambition of nature quality raises to a higher level. In the ambition level 2, a landowner has to preserve at least 25% of the area in a habitat type, like a Natura 2000 habitat type. And if you take on a level 3 or level 4, that raises until 90 to 100% of the land that will be under habitat nature conservation. All 4 of them, well, let's say most of the 3 of them will have a duration of 24 years. The difference between level 3 and level 4 is that the level 4 is actually a recognition as a nature reserve, meaning that instead of having a contract for 24 years, you engage yourself into a permanent contract to keep up the management of nature forever. Maybe next slide so I can see what the next question is. Okay, so for the different levels, there are different types of grants and subsidies. So Tom, maybe you'd like to inform everyone what the possibilities are to receive money.
Of course, I'm sure the audience is curious about this. So when it comes to grants or subsidies, everything depends on your ambition level. So in case you're under ambition level 2, 3, or 4, in a first step, you will receive, or you can receive, a grant to write the nature management plan itself. Then secondly, you can receive nature subsidies for the nature management itself on your estate. And you can also apply during the yearly calls for a nature development project. When it comes to making your land publicly accessible, it doesn't matter what ambition level you're in. If you make it publicly accessible, you receive, or you can receive a grant and subsidies for that. And then finally, if you're aiming for the highest ambition and you're placing an easement on your land, I will come back to that in the next slide, you can receive purchase subsidies. Next slide.
So I'm sure everyone is very curious to know what kind of payments you will get in each of these grants. So Tom, if you can maybe elaborate a bit on the ciphers for everyone so they have a better clue.
Yeah, of course. In the first step, you will, of course, need to write the actual management plan. And for that, you need knowledge. And not all private landowners have this knowledge. So they can team up with NGOs or hire a consultant. And to cover these costs, you will receive €100 per hectares under nature management, an additional €100 per hectares under management in order to create a certain habitat type, and then an additional 25 to €75 per hectares if you team up with several other private landowners. Of course, this is a one-off payment, and when the nature management plan is written, this is done. And then the big chunk of the subsidies that for nature management plans, they go to the actual nature management. And of course, this is a yearly cost, so also a yearly payment. And the costs, the subsidy should cover 80% of the standard cost for the management of a certain habitat type. So here in the slide, you can see 2 extreme examples. One which is very low in maintenance and management, which are estuarias, €17 per hectares, and the other one, alkaline ridge fence, which are very high to manage, will receive €2,719 per hectares. And then we also have yearly calls, and these calls come from our Nature and Forest Agency, and you can send in a proposal. And when this proposal is granted or approved, depending on your ambition level of your nature management plan, you receive funds for it, and the project can be funded. If you're in level 2, it's 50%, level 3, 80, level 4, 90. A good example is, for example, when you want to eradicate invasive species, or you want to dig a pool for a certain amphibian. These are good examples of it. And then when you make the land publicly accessible, you will also receive a yearly payment. In the first year, it will be €70 per hectares, and then all other years following, it's €40 per hectares. And then finally, when you aim for that highest ambition and you embed an easement, a conservation easement on your land, so that in the occasion when the land is sold, inherited, it will be forever nature, and it's also written down in the notary. You can receive purchase subsidies to incentivize landowners to enlarge their reserves. And it actually works as a layered system. And I will give an example for you to understand this. If you buy 1 hectare of land, which is €30,000, you will receive for the first €10,000 a fund that covers 90% of the cost, the following 5,000. So I need to give the word now to Valerie, and she will give you the final slide about the tax incentives that we have.
Yes, so I think this is of particular interest for the private landowners because it's not really interesting for the NGOs. But because you've seen in the previous slide that, of course, government and subsidies will cover a cost, but there's always a net cost to bear by the landowner. So to cover some of these costs that's still remaining, government has also provided some financial incentives. So, for instance, the inheritance tax and donation taxes are deducted as from a nature type level 2. And you will see that you will get a higher, let's say, subsidy, or you have to pay less inheritance tax as you go into a higher level of nature ambition. So donation tax, so before father or mother have passed away, sadly, if you give on the management, you will get up to 75% of discount on inheritance tax already in a level 2 nature management plan, and already 100%, so you don't have to pay inheritance tax or like donation taxes if you're at a level 3 with 90 to 100% of your land dedicated to nature restoration. Then finally, there's also the registration tax. So when you buy or sell land, if you're in a level 4 only, so if you take on a nature reserve with the infinity of management, you will get 100% of fiscal incentive, so you don't have to pay registration taxes, and the same for the property taxes, which is so only in a nature reserve, unfortunately. Did we have another slide, or is this it?
Okay. This is it.
So we had to be really short, so I hope you understood all of it, kind of. But if you have more questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. You have the QR codes of our LinkedIn page, thanks to Tom who managed to put it on there. And you'll find us during the day if you have more questions.
Thank you very much, Tom and Valerie, to be also both on stage today. We can have one clarifying question, if there is one.
I have one.
Please do. I'll pop up here again.
Thank you for that. That was fascinating. I'm from the U.S., where we have conservation easements, and on those easements you can still graze animals and do agriculture. Many different levels. So I'm curious on the easements here, what kind of agriculture is allowed to happen on those easements?
Yes, it is a tricky question because in Europe we have this thing called the CAP, which are agricultural subsidies. So basically, if you're a landowner and a farmer, you would have to choose because you cannot combine these subsidies with CAP subsidies. Although, if you have grasslands, and you're not a farmer, it would be interesting to ask someone with a big machine to cut your grass. Well, you can put cattle on there as well. Most of the time, I think it's about 2 how do you call it, 2 pieces of cattle per hectare,
yeah.
to graze. But you have to take into account that it's either the subsidies from nature management or the subsidies for farming.
But you can't do both? You can't do farming? I mean, in the case of, say,
you
Charlie.
can call it farming. Just regarding the subsidies, you can't combine both subsidies because that would be considered double financing.
I see.
So most of the people who are in agriculture would choose agricultural subsidies over these subsidies.
Okay, thank you.
I hope this was kind of an answer, but if you have more questions, we can go deeper into that afterwards.
You will still see both of them during the breaks to ask more questions. Then we will continue our little tour of Europe and we go to Catalonia with Matthias.
Okay, great. So I'm working for ICSIEN, which is the Xarxa per la Conservació de la Natura. We have about 190 members between NGOs and municipalities and so on. And I'll talk a little bit about private financing back at home. I don't know if I can do that myself. Yes. Okay. So just to give you a little overview of our situation back home, we have in Catalonia more or less 30% of the surface under protection, so Natura 2000 sites, but that doesn't mean that the effective on those places is always on those sites is always effective. And important as well is to take into consideration that about 39% of the land in Catalonia, of farmland, which is actually farmed, is private, and 67% of the woodlands is under private ownership, being them exploited or not. Then what we have in Spain mostly is land stewardship contracts, which are basically agreements between a landowner and a stewardship organization. The landowner can be public or private, and the stewardship organization as well. And here a little a side note, law defines it a little bit different in Spain than in Catalonia, because in Catalonia you need the stewardship organization to have nature conservation within its mission. And that's not the case for Spain. So, for example, a school could be a stewardship organization in Spain, but not in Catalonia. And another important point is that just recently we have got approved a decree to register those initiatives of land stewardship at Catalan level. But it is rather new since August of last year. And as you know, we in the south take it everything a little bit easy. So August last year until now, a few initiatives have yet been registered. Then going into stewardship, what's the landscape? You see the map down there. Don't look at the green. Try to look at the small red pieces. Those are the stewardship agreements. We have about 800 of those between our member organizations, making up almost a surface of 42,000 hectares. And of those, 57% are in private hands, 29 are agreements with public organizations, and then we have a few which are communal or on the public domain. Interestingly as well is that most of those agreements take place in Natura 2000 sites, so 71% are included in Natura 2000 and 20 actually in sites of special protection. Okay, so they asked us to talk a bit about financing. I don't have so nice or in deep information as my Belgian colleagues, but I have an overview basically of what NGOs or owners, where they could get money from, in order to make those actions on those stewardship initiatives, right? So if you look more into private financing, I try to squeeze in different information. So first of all, we have a platform for philanthropic giving, meaning that it's Donanda Ambiental, it's the first one on top, where NGOs can post their projects, and we tried through campaigns to finance those. For example, the Giving Thursday campaign. Another stream of financing that we're trying to push forward is the Ultra Clean Marathon, where basically you can go for a run with your company, so it's a CSR activity, and fund one concrete stewardship initiative. And what is lastly working as well quite well are micro donations. So we have a cooperation with a food chain company, where you can go to the supermarket and you put your credit card on it, and I give some money or I don't give some money, and this is actually working quite well. So we try to select stewardship initiatives or projects. 1 minute left. Okay, then I go to the next one, and to another campaign that we are doing is we're trying to push that 0.5% of the housing tax goes to nature conservation through councils. And recently, on top of carbon credits and biodiversity credits, the government has settled climate credits in Catalonia, and we are trying to build that in with initiatives of NGOs. And then to the big part of the money, Carolina, can I have my last slide? Yes, cool, thank you. Grants, that's where most of the money from the NGOs actually comes from. So we have different types of grants, being them from the water agency, being them for Natura 2000 site protection, especially from the forest, for the forest sector, where they are trying to basically pay for ecosystem services, which is as well quite recent. Or lastly, specific for specific areas. I placed Tarragona, but so this is subsidies only for NGOs that are working in collaboration with landowners in Tarragona, but there are other ones which would be the equivalent in Girona. And basically all of them try to promote better habitat quality in Natura 2000 sites. And I think my time is over. So thank you.
I think we can take one question, maybe if there is one from the audience. No? Okay. Then we move on and we're going to Italy.
Good morning. The first slide, please, is another with the photo. Okay, there isn't. No problem. What is working in Italy is the network we created with this project. We joined together a lot of landowners that felt quite alone in protecting biodiversity. And we are very happy about that. Then in the next session, we will explain better what we have to. In Italy, we have no conservation easements or other useful instrument to finance network protection for landowners. But we have a very strong organization like WWF Italy, LIPU, BirdLife Italy, FAI, which is an environmental fund, and other foundations that protect nature and heritage. One of our particularity is that heritage, like historical and archaeological estates, are inside very nice and nature wild habitats and species. This permits us to use not specific funds, because we don't have specific funds for private land conservation, but to use also tools granted by companies, big companies in the agro-environmental sector that help us to protect or increase activities in these states. These are like Barilla, Ferrero, Eni, Dodo, Mutti. We have a lot of experiences about that, and they are really helping us to protect nature in the estates. What about the next, please? What about the instruments the landowners are using? Italians are used to face a lot of difficulties, also bureaucratic ones, climate change ones, and this is why we discovered with our surveys that the landowners that want to protect nature are now using a blended mix of sources, which are quite classical for most of you, but they are used in a very smart way to have a large variety of incomes to protect nature and agriculture. But because we don't forget that Italy produces the highest percentage of organic farming in the world, and therefore our lands are protected also with organic farming practices. We sell organic products all over the world and Europe. And most of the landowners, the private land conservationists, are using organic subsidies or organic agricultural subsidies and CAP subsidies to increase the biodiversity of their property and apply organic agriculture practices. This is normally applied also with ecotourism due to the coexistence of heritage and nature. The estates are very attractive for tourists, and we calculate that 10 million of tourists each year comes to Italy to see not Pisa Tower or Colosseum, but nature and heritage together. Over 50 million presence each year. So this percentage of income in the properties is increasing, and there are a lot of estates following the ecotourism incomes as a source of fund to protect the nature and the landscape, because we are talking about landscape protection, the typical Italian landscape, which is normally connected to a mix from wild nature and agriculture landscape. Then donations and sponsorships are, I'm sure that I want that our estates can use more these funds, because in our surveys with the properties belonging to our organization, the Italian Network of Private Protected Areas, we have smart companies and estates that are increasing this source of fund, also creating foundations in US to collect money to protect the Italian landscape in their properties in Italy or in connected properties in Italy. So there are a lot of connections with the entire world, where there are Italians living since generations that are now coming to buy or protect their properties in Italy. NGOs, yes, we have in the last years we assisted to the increasing of NGOs as a way to create entities and attract money from sponsorships or CSR and other source of funding. associations dealing with landscape protection, with nature and landscape protection. Carbon credits are one of the new, in the last years, new source of income, in particular for biggest estates located in areas more good for this kind of business. Even most of landowners wanted to do PLC. Are not quite interested in this kind of business because it is not known as one of the transparent one. So I hope this landscape I've given you can attract to also to connect with us. Me and Francesco, we are belonging to WWF Italy, and I hope there are some questions from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefano. We are aware that this is a lot of information coming to you, but it's just to give you an idea what's happening already in the different countries, and we will have the rest of the day to discuss this further. So we can have one clarifying question for Stefano. I think there's one. Otherwise, like I said, we still have the whole day to discuss it further. So we stayed a bit in the south. Now we travel back to the north and we go to Finland. And Kimmo will introduce to us the Metso program.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I think we could start with some government propaganda. Can you play the film?
Nämä on semmoisia lempparipaikkoja lapsille muun muassa. Me ollaan niin kuin istuttu sitten niissä kalliokielekkeiden alla ja kerrottu niin kuin tarinoita. Tämä on ollut meillä hakkaamatta ja ollaan ikään kuin varjeltu tätä metsää niin kuin luonnontilassa. Tämähän on meidän olohuone. Täällä viihtyy niin meidän oma perhe kuin sitten vieraatkin.
Meillähän ajatuksena se, että vaikka tämä on suojelualue, niin antaa niin kuin mahdollisuus muille ja kaupunkilaisperheille liikkua ja nähdä tätä luonnon kauneutta. Että luontohan on niin kuin esteettinen ihan sellaisenaan.
Tämä tilan omaehtoinen pieni suojelu, se on sitten ehkä pisara meressä, mutta kaikki ei tarvitse olla niin suuressa mittaluokassa.
From now on, I will have a kind of strong landowner's point of view. Can we go back to the presentation? Yeah, here we go. When Finland joined the EU in 1994, we, of course, were taking all the obligations, also the environmental ones. And one of the most traumatizing efforts from the landowner's point of view was the quick and, in a way, almost brutally, not violent, but the next word to that, introduction of Natura 2000 network. And it left a lot of negative sentiments and even mistrust between the landowners and and the environmental administration. But thank God, things are progressing, and this Metso program is an excellent example of gaining the trust back and including the landowners on a very voluntary basis to this important work. We have a tendency to speak of landowners as a big block, but that is, of course, far from the truth. Even in our members, we have very efficient forestry people who say that they don't have a single tree in their 1,000 hectares, which is older than 60 years. And then in the other end of the spectrum, you have people who de facto have protected completely their forests. You don't see it anywhere in the statistics, but they are completely outside the economic forestry. And of course, the big part of the forest owners are somewhere in between. So you might have an important area for your family which you just don't touch, and you don't register that anyway. But then we have the Metso program, which was initiated to southern Finland in 2014. You can, of course, dispute the concept of southern Finland, but actually there is that kind of part in Finland too. Basically, this means all Finland south of Lapland. And in this region, most of the land is privately owned. The program can be, oh, somebody's rushing there. Can we go back? Can we go back, please? There we go. Yeah, so there are 3 methods, and they all are nature conservation, I can progress myself here. So you can either have permanent protection, and it can be done either privately, so you still own the land, or then you can sell the land to the state. And for that, we have so far got 93,000 hectares. Then the second possibility is temporary conservation, where you can make agreements for 10 or 20 years. 20 years is actually regarded as permanent protection, and for 10 years, we have 82,000 hectares. And this means in total about 170,000 hectares in 10 years. And there is the third method, which is then nature management activities, but we don't get into that in this presentation. So Metso is about forest, but then there is another program called Helmi, which is for wetlands. Not for arable lands, not for wetlands, not for waterways, purely just forest. There are 10 habitats that are targeted here, and the government then makes the evaluation of the forest in question, whether it qualifies for Metso. Not all of them do. And then there is negotiation between the landowner who has taken initiative for this. So the initiative comes from the landowners, not from the government side. And then starts the negotiation on the pricing. What Valerie and Tom here presented, we couldn't cope with that kind of complexity. So basically, everything is based on the timber worth in the area plus the land price. And in this example, we have a plot of 5 hectares. And if you want to have it protected by the state, so that the state actually buys the land, you get the timber worth minus taxes you would need to pay, minus the works you'd need to do to regenerate the forest after the clearing. So you end up into 42,000 euros, starting from 50,000. And since it's tax exempt completely, this is actually pretty good a deal. If you opt for private protection, you get the same sum minus the land worth. For 20 years, you get about a third of it. And for 10 years, you get about, what is it then, about 1/5, 1/6 of the price. And these are, the two latter ones are taxed, and you get everything paid as a lump sum when you start. What about the future then? There will be budget cuts by the government. Hopefully this 11 million that has been reserved for this program per annum stays. But from the landowners' side, we also look with great interest to the markets of ecological compensation, which is taking baby steps in Finland and overall globally. There is some legislation already there concerning that. And the areas that don't qualify for the state program are already verified and the inventory has been made. So it would be pretty easy to take from there some areas for the private market, and this is very tempting for the landowners. And for that, I end my presentation. Thank you.
So we have, again, time for one quick question, if there is one. Otherwise, oh, yeah, Amy.
I have a question about the permanent protection. What's the difference between the permanent protection by state versus owner?
Who owns the land? That is the question. So with state protection, the state buys the land.
They buy the land permanently. Yeah. And then with the owner, does that transfer to the next owner?
With private conservation, it stays with the owner.
Okay.
So now we have our last presentation.
There was one question here still.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No, I had a question on the temporary protection side. So 10 and 20 years it was, right?
Yes.
That's one forest cycle. So after that, what does happen with the wood? Are they encouraged to go to the permanent run, or are they free to?
Well, this is a very good question, because this is exactly the same what I started thinking now. The program started 2014, so the first agreements are now expiring, and I tried to check whether it's possible to continue it with another 10 years or with 20 years, or just transfer it to the state protection. I don't know, but in principle, after 10 years, you have all the freedom what you want as a landowner. You can clear cut it if you want, but probably you wouldn't.
Hopefully. Okay, so now we have the last presentation, René, and then we're going for a coffee break. So.
Good morning, everyone. I'm talking about the financial incentives for the family states in the Netherlands. My pitch will deal with the Dutch tax law Natuurschoonwet that works well in the Netherlands for the continuity of family estates. My name is René de Bond and I work for FPG, Federatie Particulier Grondbezit, as regional coordinator and regional coordinator and project manager. And with this project, I'm co-chair on the excellent working group on financial incentives. It was a pleasure to work with our team. FPG is the Federation for Private Landowners in the Netherlands. The federation has about 1,600 members in the Netherlands, and they own together about 200,000 hectares. Half of it is agricultural, half of it is nature. Most of these families, they own an estate, and their goal is to transfer the property in a better condition to the next generation. And in doing so, the NSW forms the base, the law forms the base. And what's that tool, NSW, Natuurschoonwet? I'm using in this pitch the 3 letters NSW. The Dutch government seeks to encourage the private management of nature reserves. The English translation of NSW is the Nature Conservation Act or Nature Estate Act. And it's a law from 1928. It's a very old law. And it was established by the Dutch government to promote the preservation of a country estate in their existing condition, including nature area, agriculture and nature area. The NSW is a tax law and offers owners of an estate tax benefits under certain conditions. A country estate qualifies as such if it's of general public interest, that is, preservation is considered important to the natural and landscape beauty of the countryside. When a site is classified, it's an official estate, and the law is not a subsidy scheme. There isn't a national budget. So there is no direct financial contribution of management or maintenance from that law. However, like in Flanders, we have grants for conservation and for building restoration, and those are allowed. And why it's important to qualify as an NSW estate. The estates are valuable for nature conservation, why we're here today, but also for cultural history and for landscape. The continuity of the entire estate is of public interest and to preserve the natural and scenic beauty of the countryside. It's for the families the most important financial incentives. There is no inheritance and gifts. If not, they can request a reduction of 50%. I saw in Flemish also a scheme. The exemption from inheritance tax makes it possible to hold the land, the total estate, in the family. Tax-related benefits are necessary to continue a family ownership. The benefits can be enjoyed at the time of buying, as well as during possession or inheritance. And other benefits, there is only yield tax for the buildings. There is, when you're buying a country estate, it's free of transfer tax. And there is also a property tax exemption for the land. And residential properties are valued lower for local taxes. Not everything about Dutch estates is an advantage. For example, a lack of freedom and privacy. And there are costs for conservation, for maintenance and operation. The property must remain in possession for at least 25 years to avoid retroactive claims. And due to the often monumental status, there are limited possibilities for renovation. You see on this sheet, the first sheet, you see an example, a Dutch example, but there are, of course, a lot of them. But this example is the estate Blijendijk. It's in the south of the Netherlands, 120 hectares, buildings, historical buildings, lanes, forest, and organic farm. And the NSW protects the coherence. You can see it on the sheet that it's a nice area to live and to visit. The requirements, that's the second sheet now, the requirements. The estate should cover a minimum of 5 hectares, but we have examples even from 500 to 5,000 hectares. And yesterday from Vilsteren, we had the family owner, Vilsteren is one of a beautiful example in the east of the Netherlands. Full ownership and classification for at least 25 years is relevant for the inheritance and gift tax. And what we see those estates, there is an engagement of the next generation, and that is necessary, very important. Family members have been involved with the estate from an early age. The NSW estate consists for at least 30% woodland or nature reserve. A combination is possible and common. In order to have an object of a building or the site itself included in the Dutch list, the owner can submit an application to the Ministry of Agriculture and Nature. And what's very important, there will be a site review by the county and the tax authorities. So it's not that easy to get it. If landowners are not in line with these requirements, the entire financial inheritance and gift tax benefit will be recovered by the government. And why does it work well? The main purpose to keep the landscape together, a joint entity, multiple shareholders in the family. Very important. Now, at the end, what could be improved? The current NSW offers insufficient opportunities for active farmers to extensify their farm and make it ready for the next generation. And there we were working on a new model for landscape land near Natura 2000, where we want to make the farms bigger so you get less cows a hectare. FPG, our organizations introducing the farmland estate. It's an alternative business model, and the farmland estate will rest on the same pillars as the traditional estate. So you have land-related agriculture, you have nature, you have a diverse landscape and accessible, and it is accessible for the public with the footpath. And the focus is here with that new system is on grassland and less on additional forest. And for that focus, it's important to have alternative revenues, and we saw it at the NEP farm estate. That you need recreation and housing, and but it must be linked to like in Italy, it must be linked to the agricultural activities. The farmland estate can come under the scope of the NSW, like the classic estates, but FPG is consulting with the government at the moment to realize similar tax and legal benefits, and hopefully the Dutch government will agree to this new application. Thank you. Okay.
So again, we open the floor to the audience if there is a question for René. Otherwise, you can also continue during the coffee break. We have a question. Go ahead.
Very focused on the Netherlands, but there's a new law, the Omgevingswet. How does this fit into the Omgevingswet, and is it still? There's a new law in the Netherlands, the Omgevingswet. But is it still going to be involved in the new law?
So the old law is very important. We want to keep the Dutch law forever, if possible, because the estates, we need the estates also forever. But the idea is an extra possibility for farmers to become under that law as well, but not with more wood or forest, but with more nature grassland.
Yeah, the thing I actually meant is if the NSW is falling under the omgevingswet.
The NSW, the nature, the NSW in English, yes, it's not a law for city or from villages. No, it's a tax law. It's a different. You have to think about the tax. There's only this incentive. Very important to have less tax, because when you need to pay a lot of tax, you don't have the money for nature conservation. But we can discuss it later on.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.